Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? Sorry I hadn't did a video in so long. Um, I apologize. I thought I'd make another video since I ain't posted one in a while. And those that stay faithful, because I know after a few months, we like he didn't disappeared again. I know some of my viewers like, man, why do you do that? But things that I plan out and want things to go a certain way. Like I was gonna record this song and put it out. That didn't work out like I want. So just different things like that. So been busy, really, really busy this summer. So thanks for tuning in. For those that are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for when I post a new video. And now that we got one more month, is going into we're going into fall, so I'm going to be slowing down on all the summer work I've been doing and getting back up into the studio. So what I want to talk about is I wanted to talk about audio interfaces in your the preamps in your audio interface versus the an external preamp. And an external preamp would be something like these racks of preamps right here, or or inside any one of these, like this console or in a mixing board. Because mixing boards like this and several mixing boards, they also usually have preamps in them. So I've always used the mixing board preamps or external preamps, even though I've had several audio interfaces of my M Audio. It has preamps in it. I have the Omni channel. It's called the M Audio Omni Studio. I've had the Behringer FCA. I've had the Personas Audio Box. I had the Focus 2i2. I've had another Personas called the 1818 VSL, and just several interfaces that have preamps. The preamps that I have now, downstairs setup, I have another Behringer FCA 1616 with an external ADA with an external 8 preamps, so to give you a total of 16 inputs and 16 outputs. But I don't use the preamps in those interfaces for recording. I always use an external preamp, or I just don't use, even though you can use the preamp in the interface. In my personal opinion, this is just me. I've as many preamps, as many interfaces, audio interfaces with preamps that I've used. I've never liked their onboard preamp sound alone. Excuse me. I'm not saying that it's not usable. Some people have great success with just the interface preamps, but for me personally, they don't have enough color, enough warmth for me. So, I've done several where I've gotten with several people that have setups in their studios, and they have they would have a preamp, they would have some mixers, an interface and stuff like that. And I noticed that when they try to use the interface alone, that they weren't getting the signal, the warmth, the fatness, and all that in the sound without using either the preamp in the console or going through an external preamp. So with that being said, in my personal opinion, and this is my personal opinion from my experience, I think that if you have a setup in your home and all you have is your DAW, you have your plugins, your software, your interface, and maybe some microphones and a few other things. monitors or whatever, but you don't have any external gear like an external preamp, I highly recommend going with an external preamp. I really do. I think that you will be a lot more happier with the results. Now, I'm going to end on this note because it's not going to be a very long video at all. Think about this, for example. If you have some of the high-end interfaces that are expensive, like the Apogee Symphony or the Lynx Aurora or the Avid HD 192 or the Antelopes or any of those type of interfaces that are mainly just interfaces, they don't have any type of internal preamps, and they're being used in professional studios because of their converters. Why is that? Why wouldn't a recording studio choose interfaces with built-in preamps? And I'll tell you why. When you have a recording studio that has a large format console like a Neve or an SSL or an API or a Trident, or the list just goes on the consoles. Those consoles already have stellar preamps already in the mixing consoles. Plus, most recording studios, when we're talking about the big boys, they're going to have an accessory of 500 series or 19-inch rack preamps, Neve style preamps, APIs, preamps, or whatever the case. They're going to have a rack full of those. And they know this, so they know that the high quality of those type of sounding preamps going through those type of converters, whether they're going to use the console preamps like the SSL, or like me, I have an Allen & Heath that has really great sounding preamps in this Allen & Heath. You're going to go with the preamps from the console, or you're going to go with some external preamps. Like I have the Tone Beast, which is based in API. I have some Altron, which are Neve style preamps. I have some Arts. I have an Avalon. Some in Personas. Just quite a few selection of preamps over there. It's probably at least 20-something preamps external, as well as the there's 48 preamps in this console because there's 48 channels. There would be no need. I just know for a fact that console preamps like this Allen & Heath or external preamps always tend to make the microphones and external sources sound a whole lot warmer and more in depth than just the preamp alone. Now, there's only one real exception to that, and that would be if you already had a great sounding source, which is usually like synthesizers, like for example, my Korg or my Yamaha, my Roland's and boards like that already sound amazing coming from the board. Those boards already have amps in them and things like that. The sounds in those are already amazing. So you can usually do a direct into your preamp in your interface that way. But ending on this note, to say this, why do you think top-notch studios have interfaces that do not have external preamps? It's because they know, and recording studios know this. They know that the preamps in those consoles and those external preamps are going to be some of the best sounding preamps on the market. Whether you get a Day King or, there's so many top-notch, high-priced preamps. When you get preamps of that level, like my Avalon 737 in the rack over here as an example. When you get preamps of that level, you'll see why. Especially if you have some nice sounding mics. And whatever you're recording, vocals or acoustic guitar or whatever. You will hear a big difference going from using a rack mounted preamp like my Altron, which are Neve style preamps, because they have input and output transformers and things like that in them. Same thing with my Tone Beast because it has input and output transformers. Same thing with my Avalon because it has input and output transformers. and stuff like that. They have circuits in them that your interface, like if you have an M audio or one of those type of interface, an Audient or whatever, those interfaces do not have input and output transformers. They're gonna have maybe an op amp and maybe some resistors and stuff like that, but basic preamp circuitry. But the fatness comes from like transformers. That's what gives the sound a really fat, warm sound through those preamps. Well, they know this in the big studios, so it's going to be subjective and up to you whether you think you need an external preamp. In my personal opinion, if you don't have one, I think you'll be happy investing in one. And you'll hear the difference and A/B it and hear the difference. But you do not have to buy one if you just feel that you don't need to buy one or you're happy with what you're getting. I would say stick to it. But think about this lastly in the video. Think about this for a second. If your top-notch studios are using high-end converters with really high-end preamps and through a console and things like that, think about how the sound is. Think about the sound that comes out of these top-notch studios. And what I'm telling you is that's the reason, other than the microphone they're using and the space they're in and the recording techniques they're using, everything else is based on the console, the preamps, and stuff like that into the converter, into your DAW. The DAWs themselves and the plugins are the same for the most part. Some DAWs have functions, other DAWs don't. But the DAW doesn't sound any better than any other DAW because the sound comes from your converter. And what goes into your converter that makes a difference is the source, the choice of microphones and stuff like that, and instruments, and the preamps. The choice of preamps and stuff like that. All that affects the results you're going to get in your recordings. So, recording studios. So think about your top-notch recording studios and the mixing consoles and the racks of gear, and why do they get, and how come these studios, they sound so big, and why do they sound the way they do? Well, that's because the console, the preamps in the console, the external preamps they're using, the microphones, the space, the recording techniques, the engineers setting stuff up, all this. And it's definitely, it's not just an audio interface with built-in preamps alone. They're going to use a high-end like a Burl or an Apogee or Lynx or something like that, RME or something like that, Avid HD Pro or something like that. They're going to use a interface of that level, the Antelope, and they're going to use external preamps in the console or in the rack. That's so. If they're doing it and they're getting the results they're getting, like in these studios like Blackbird, or some of the Los Angeles studios, New York studios, and so forth, and they're using an SSL console, whatever. Think about that for a second. So that's going to do it for the video. Thanks for watching. And that's just my take on it. And that's why I believe it depends on the recording source. In most cases, an external preamp is going to help your sound big time. Other than that, thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.